was genuinely shocked coming into on Tuesday and on Wednesday, not expecting the Giants to spend any money like on any legitimate names. Paulson, Adebo, and Jevon Holland were guys that were brought up as some of the best free agents in the class. Paulson Adebo was one of the best available corners. There weren't very many good ones. And then Jevon Holland was arguably the best available safety in the market because, again, there were no available options. It's really stupid, though, to backtrack here and to realize that they let Xavier McKinney walk and then they brought in and spent all this money on Jevon Holland. It's a lot of moves making up for past mistakes. It's the shit that we yelled about the other day with Saquon Barkley leaving and then paying Darius Slayton all this money because you don't want to watch him leave.
Yeah.
I don't know if I feel excited about this. This feels like moves of money that's being spent for the next general manager. I'm still waiting on the news that they traded up to the first overall pick, man. If they don't, I stand by this. If they do not trade up for that first overall pick, going and signing Jevon Holland, who's a great safety, going and signing Paulson Adebo, who's going to be great opposite Deonte Banks. If you don't move up, and I got to watch, apparently Joe Flacco's in the mix now.
Congratulations.
Joe Flacco,
Congratulations.
or Russell Wilson, or Aaron Rodgers. Screw you.
Oh, no, you're
trot
you're
out there. I'm going to lose my freaking mind.
You guys are just biding time, weighing all your options. Who needs to get the best available guy?
There's no options. There's no options. There's no fucking options. There's no options, Sean.
I think you guys are being smart. The tortoise always beats the hare, don't they?
Wait, I don't mean to cut you off. I need to, because you just made me like full circle here. Realization. I knew Daniel Jones wasn't shit after 2 years, okay?
Sure.
Whenever your team doesn't have a quarterback, and you were just with this, was Michael Penix was just being drafted by the Falcons. When your team doesn't have a quarterback, you always think to yourself, when the time comes, we're going to get it right. Yeah. When that time comes, we're going to have the ability to make the right choice, whether it's a free agent, whether it is drafting the best available rookie quarterback.
That's the goal.
And you're telling me that the year in which we're making this decision, there's no good free agent options. It's a bunch of bum-ass, washed old veterans, and it's a historically bad quarterback class. And the last time we took a quarterback was during another historically bad quarterback class? What kind of shit luck is this? Like, wait, why do I have to live through this?
This either becomes, obviously, the nasty cycle and timing that you have been just stuck in, or, very big or here, you get lucky. And you just luck out, and you have a great year, and you draft the guy in the 5th round that becomes your Purdy. I know you love Brock Purdy. Don't you want to draft your own Brock Purdy this year?
Nope. No, because I don't think Brock Purdy's good, man. I don't.
We're getting to the part of the.
That's the ultimate hell. Seriously, that is the ultimate hell. Where you take a guy at the very end of the draft, and he's just good enough to make all the low-level ball knowers think that he's good.
Yeah.
And then you go and spend a bunch of money on him, and then you realize he wasn't as good as everybody thought. No, I want the tools. I want Josh Allen. I want Lamar Jackson. I want Patrick Mahomes. Cam Ward has that. And we ain't going to fucking get him. We're not going to get him, Sean.
Would you trade for Anthony Richardson?
Actually, yeah, I'd be more than happy to trade for Anthony Richardson.
Wouldn't mind to see him in a new scene, you know.
I think he'd be perfect in Dable's offense.
Give him a fresh start. Why not?
Let him tease me with things I would actually enjoy.
I'm not teasing. I'm just pitching. I'm throwing it out there. I'm sure you'd trade for McCarthy also.
I'd be extremely high. Well, McCarthy's not getting traded. Good shout by you.
Let's see. Not done yet. I guess the main topic here, Paulson Adebo and Jevon Holland. I really like Adebo. I hated watching Paulson Adebo play because he was on the Saints and he had some of our Atlanta's wide receivers in hell. But he was a name that continuously popped up. Big tackles, good coverage. That's a good ad for you. I know you guys couldn't keep James Bradbury. That's tough. You know, I know you wanted to, and you probably should have.
He was fine for the 10 minutes he was in New York.
He was good. I thought he was good.
Yeah.
And Holland's really good also. We need to do an investigation on why Miami can find such good defensive backs and never do dick with their team as a whole. Like they never find offensive linemen. They haven't found a defensive lineman since Cameron Wake. But every year, someone's coming out of that Miami defensive backfield getting paid big money. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Holland now. They had Jesus. I mean, Jalen Ramsey wasn't homegrown there. Who else am I thinking of? I had another name on the top of my list. They just have a bunch of good defensive backs.
They never stay.
Yeah, they never stay. Why would they? We're in Miami. We keep losing. I'll go up to New York and lose even more. Why not? I'm Jevon Holland. I'll get paid $45 million by the New York Giants. Good signing. I'm sure Terry's not going to burn him, and you won't be upset.
Terry
McLaurin. I'm sure I'll be able to handle Smitty and A.J. Brown pretty well.
This is
CeeDee Lamb going for 150.
This is one of the things, though, to just like talk about good roster building. Somebody had put out a chart of like where most Pro Bowl players at particular positions end up coming from. Like guards is typically the free agents that you want to sign because typically you get really good guard play out of guys that you sign in free agency. It's just like you can spend the money on the guys at the top of the market. You end up turning those guys into premier players on an already established team. I feel like corners, it's one of those positions where if I didn't draft him, I don't know if I want to pay him because there's usually not great options out there. And I think Paulson Adebo is a good corner, and I think he's going to be a good starter. But I always just get a little worried when you're committing a lot of money to a guy that you didn't draft and he doesn't work out, you're locked in for multiple years. If you drafted a guy and he was already great in the system, you feel better about it. It's like, oh, we drafted this guy. He's shown some good stuff. We extended him. He deserved the money. But there's a shot that he shows up and he stinks. Like Janoris Jenkins was a really good example of that, where he showed up, he was good for a minute, and then he was awful. He was awful. He wasn't very good after that one good season he had with the Giants.
Xavier Howard is who I was thinking of, another Dolphins defensive back. Here's the tricky thing with corners. You're onto something here. I love drafting defensive backs. I love it. I feel like your team can never have enough good cornerbacks and safeties. And then when you get them early on that rookie deal, that's when they're the most exciting. Pick sixes, big banger, boom or bust types of guys. They're either getting burned or they're locked down all season. And then here comes the time to pay the piper. Look how exciting I was when I was at my fastest and most athletic. Now you're going to pay me for the next 3 years, 4 years maybe. Well, I'm kind of figuring out how to become a crafty vet at the defensive back position. I don't like picking up that next big defensive back contract. I either want them at the beginning or I want them at the end. Like when Stephon Gilmore moved on. He got paid a bunch of money. Then the next team he landed on, fantastic. Like when he went to New England, great. He was a defensive player of the year. But that's because he had to go to another spot. Where did he go? He went to another spot. Was it Indy?
He was with he bounced around a little bit after because he was on the Cowboys for a minute. Wait, let me look that up.
He got paid and then he was adequate, a pretty decent defensive back. And then he started actually learning the tools in the craft, and he became Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, he was with a lot of teams. So after the Patriots, he was with the Panthers, the Colts, the Cowboys, and then the Vikings. So he really bounced around a shitload. That was why we couldn't really pinpoint that. But the first team that he was with was with the Panthers. That was a really random one. Yeah, the roster building's weird. A corner is a position that I get a little bit. I have a lot of pause on. Safeties, though, is a position where typically you're going to get the best performances out of a guy that you sign in free agency. You shouldn't spend a draft pick on a safety.
I wasn't crushed when Atlanta gave a big contract to AJ Terrell because he showed a level of consistency. Not that he's the best corner in the league, but he's definitely not the worst. I think he's a top 10 guy, but floating around that 10 mark. Some days he's a 12, some days he's an 8 in the league. That's fine. That's worth the money to me to have a guy in that range. But once you start shelling out big money for a top 3 dude who's going to start declining with the speed, or a bottom 25 guy, that's, I think, where teams getting caught in that wicket.
Gavin's making me feel bad because he's a Seahawks fan, because we let Julian Love walk in. That had to have been one of the ones that I was the most upset about because Notre Dame fan, loved Julian Love at Notre Dame. He was awesome with the Giants, and he was getting better every single year. He's not like a premier safety. He's just a really good starter. He's one of those guys you have on your team. You're like, yeah, that's a guy that I'm happy to say is a member of the team that I root for because he's just good enough. The floor is high. He's consistent. He's not a dickhead. Just checks every single box.
We just brought back Mike Hughes, who I was thinking about like that until I saw the Minnesota game where he was sprawled out on the ground twice on deep bombs to Jay Jettas. And I said, okay, Mike Hughes, if we bring you back, it should be at a reduced capacity. But we'll bring him back. We could use another DB.